In the middle of the Nevada desert sits a seductive oasis.
I was like, okay, let's go. We're going out to Las Vegas.
A western paradise where people live out their fantasies.
There was mention that he may want to end up living in the desert.
Yet not everyone here is running toward something.
It seemed like a very traumatic past that she was coming to Vegas to escape from.
Sometimes an oasis is just a mirage.
I had a feeling that things were not going to be good from that minute forward.
He had some very odd markings on his chest. There was redrum, which is murder spelled backwards.
Sometimes death comes knocking on your door. It's winter in the Nevada desert.
North Las Vegas is the northern end of the Clark County area, which encompasses Las Vegas, Henderson, Boulder City.
North Las Vegas, anywhere outside of the Strip in Las Vegas is pretty rough. The whole city is like a nightclub. You know, when the sun comes up and the lights come on, it's not pretty.
Even places with a shiny facade.
It's a nice apartment complex. It looks really nice from the outside.
As the sun begins its morning climb, it reveals the sins of the night before. Sins so heinous that this first responder prefers to keep his identity hidden, as he describes the morning of February 8th, 2010. It all begins when a 911 operator receives a panic call.
I happened to be very close, so I was the first one on scene.
Hey!
There was a young white male standing outside, and he waved me over.
Where is he? They're in the bathroom. It's Roy. He had a seizure or something. My mom's in there with him.
The call was dispatched as a man possibly having a seizure.
In the bathroom, the officer finds an alarming scene. Roy Schutzler collapsed on the floor.
I could see a white female adult sitting on the floor next to the head of an older white male adult. He was not moving and didn't appear to be breathing.
I'm trying to do CPR. Please help me. I don't know what to do.
The CPR wasn't working. The chest wasn't rising and falling. I could tell it was stopped in the middle of the neck, trachea area somewhere.
Paramedics transport Schutzler to the ER.
Please save him.
It's a day Daniel Vandecar will never forget.
I'm thinking that it's a damn heart attack or something. I have no idea what the hell's going on. But I gave him my all. I was like, come on, buddy, you got this,
The officer turns to the residents to piece together the events that led to the 911 call.
So what's your name, ma'am?
Rosemary Vandecar. This is my son, Dan. We lived with Roy.
Roy.
Yeah, Roy. Guy just got wheeled out of here.
I take care of him, make sure he's taking his pills, that kind of thing.
She told me that she was his caregiver, giving him his medicines, taking him to his doctor's appointments, and things of that nature.
Okay, so what happened to him?
Well, he was having a panic attack, and I was about to give him a shower. I sat him.
Rosemary told officers that Roy had had a medical episode in the bathroom.
It's all right, Roy. You're nearly there. You go in, that's good. You're doing good.
She told me that he was having a panic attack and she was gonna put him in the shower.
I'm gonna sit you down, there you go. I'll be right back.
Set him down on the toilet and left to get a rag. She thought he had fallen off the toilet and hit his throat on the sink.
Roy?
She heard a noise, and when she came back, he was laying in the floor.
Daddy! Call 911! Roy! Daddy!
Daniel was asleep on the couch, and he heard his mother screaming, and he saw his mother performing CPR on Roy.
Don't just stand there, call 911!
And she was screaming for Daniel to call 911.
The officer heads to the hospital to follow up on Roy's condition. But by the time he arrives, Roy Schutzler is dead. and the police have questions.
He felt that something was suspicious about the whole incident.
The injuries to the body didn't appear consistent with the statement that the female had given me. He was laying there without any clothes, just a sheet covering him. You could immediately see that there was bruising from head to toe and all different stages of healing.
The coroner agrees to look at the body to determine if a full autopsy is in order.
There was a moment where we looked at the body and looked at each other, and we were both on the same page that there was way too many injuries to this gentleman than would make sense from falling.
You need to contact your CSI because I'm ruling this as suspicious right now.
On it.
As the autopsy is scheduled, in a nearby waiting room, Rosemary and Dan get the bad news.
We ended up going over to the hospital, and we got told that he passed away. My mom was all sorts of panicky, freaking out.
At the apartment, police take stock of the scene.
CSI went in and just started taking their pictures and doing their thing, and they go take pictures. They'll take any kind of evidence that they find that we would maybe need later in a case if it ended up looking like it was a murder.
Could there be more to Roy's death?
The next morning, we were notified to respond to the coroner's office for the autopsy. Rosemary told officers that Roy had fallen over, maybe fallen on his neck. They noticed what appeared to be ligature marks around Roy's neck, as well as a lot of bruising throughout his body, very serious bruising, and apparently very serious wounds inside of his throat.
That's when we started our investigation.
And what had just been a routine call the day before is now a homicide investigation.
I believe they argued they didn't really get along. It was a very strained relationship.
You look in those eyes and something wasn't right there.
Roy Schutzler has been found dead in his bathroom. A tragic end for a man who dreamed of the wild, wild West. Before hearing the siren songs of Vegas, Roy spent his entire life up north in Michigan. Yet like so many other boys of his day, he grew up fascinated with the legends of cowboys and Indians.
Every week that the Lone Ranger came on, we were right there listening to that radio. You knew the people in the white hats were the good guys and the ones with the black hats were the bad guys, and he just loved the Lone Ranger. He had a whole room with nothing but Lone Ranger memorabilia.
As his Western dreams gather dust, Roy settles down in suburban Cadillac, Michigan with his wife Sharon and their 2 kids.
He met Sharon in college. After they graduated, they got married. It was a very loving, warm relationship. It was structured. After high school came college. After college came marriage. After marriage came babies. This is just the way we were raised.
Roy was a occupational therapist. Spent his whole life doing that. Did a lot of counseling in the high schools and with people.
He was very compassionate. He was a nice guy. He was also very female dependent.
Now, I want you home by 6. No dilly-dallying at the office. I know these people need you, but guess what? So does your family.
Not half as much as I need you guys.
As a caseworker for Child Protective Services, Roy is introduced to his latest client.
So, Rosemary, how are things going with you?
Rosemary Vandecar.
My mom was successful and charming and beautiful.
Where, I'm working real hard.
She worked for a nonprofit as a mediator, helping women who were going through the legal system, who had been arrested for something, who were going through trials. Her job was to help these women kind of understand their rights, understand their options, and help them get through that whole process.
Whatever you need, we're here for you.
She was working on a master's, and I don't really know what her degree was going towards. But I know that she had worked administrative a lot. She used to do volunteer for Red Cross. She was a military wife.
But when she first meets Roy, her life looks very different.
Okay, but how are things really going?
He did this 2 days ago.
Her first husband was a monster, was very abusive. There was, definitely a history of abuse and a history of violence.
My mother and my father, they were at each other's throats. I mean, this had to be one of the nastiest, publicly humiliating divorces, because of all places for it to happen in a very small town with, I would say, 3,500 people or less. By the time you could walk across the town, everybody knew what was happening. It was humiliating.
I'm just afraid the town is too small and everybody knows him and they think he's so nice and they think he's so great. They don't realize what a violent monster he is. They don't realize how angry he gets. He gets so mad and the kids get really scared.
They were going through a pretty wicked custody battle, and there was a time period when it was undecided where we would be placed. And so temporarily we were put into like a foster situation.
My mom was getting a divorce, and she was assigned to him.
Roy was our CPS case manager back when we were young kids, and that he was the gentleman that would come check on us.
You need to call the police.
But I don't know where to go. I have nowhere to go. I have nowhere to go right now.
It's okay. I will find you a place. All right?
Faced with the prospect of losing custody of her children, Rosemary needs Roy's support.
I'm sorry, kids.
He's a caring kind of guy. I mean, we were raised that way. We were raised to help other people.
Roy? Roy, I just heard the news.
With Roy's guidance, after a month in foster care, the children are returned to their mother.
So, I just have a few things to explain to you, okay? You have full custody.
And over the years, Roy and Rosemary stay in touch. In 2003, Roy and Sharon learn she has terminal cancer. Roy retires early and devotes himself to Sharon's care.
Whenever you have cancer, it's traumatic. Roy was just devastated. You just don't expect stuff like that to happen.
In August of 2007, Sharon dies, and Roy, for the first time in his life, is well and truly alone. In the months and years after Sharon's passing, Roy's sadness deepens into a depression.
I think he was very lonely. I think when anyone passes like that, especially as close as Sharon and Roy were, your whole life is built on this other person, and all of a sudden, the person dies and they're gone and you're just kind of left. You have tons of people around you for the first couple of weeks or so, and after that, you wake up and the house is really quiet.
There's only one thing that keeps him going.
Roy had a good relationship with his family. He had a daughter that lived close by, and the daughter had a daughter of her own, and they were close.
Look who came to visit. Yes.
Roy was female dependent, and he transferred that from Sharon to Kathy Jo and was dependent upon his daughter, Kathy Jo. And then when Rosemary came into his life, then he transferred the female dependency on her.
At some point in 2009, Rosemary came back into Roy's life.
Is Roy in?
My brother called me and told me that she had met up with Roy, that Roy had recently lost his wife and he was sad. And he just wanted somebody to take care of him.
Rosemary, this is Katie Jo, my daughter. Katie Jo, Rosemary.
So, how are you keeping?
I'm all right.
You're looking good.
Thank you.
I think he just needed other people around him, and he just wanted someone who he could love. Someone who could be a helpmate to him, someone who could be a companion, someone who could be a friend, someone who would be there for him. I'm here to help you. You know, you're really a neat guy.
Such a neat guy that soon Rosemary moves in.
Hey, Roy.
Hey, Rosemary.
I'm so glad to be here.
She and they were good friends, and they had kind of an agreement that they would live together, and she would, you know, as he was aging, I think his health wasn't so great, so she would take care of him. She was kind of in a caregiver role for him.
Is this books or something?
I'll take care of it, Roy.
Oh, it's all right. I got it.
I know that Roy was hoping to have a romantic relationship with Rosemary.
It was Rosemary this, it was Rosemary that, it was Rosemary the next thing. He was just absolutely enamored with this Rosemary.
Here you go, Roy.
Now, with daily company, Roy's spirits soar.
Yes.
But that's not the only change.
I love this show.
Roy was a hands-on grandfather. He was over at the house on a regular basis, almost on a daily basis. And after Rosemary came into Roy's life, that pretty much all stopped.
He was the star behind the masked hero known as the Cape Crusader on 1960s television.
Lone Ranger.
No, silly. It's Adam West, Batman. You think the Lone Ranger's the answer to everything.
Well, you can't kill a man for being wrong.
He was no longer babysitting the little one. He was not returning Kathy Jo's phone messages. She could not get hold of him.
Roy's family did not deal well with that. They attempted to contact him many times, and they became very upset.
Concerned about her father and unable to contact him, Kathy Jo pays an unexpected visit to the home.
I'm here to see my father.
Let me just see if he's taking any visitors.
Taking visitors? I'm his daughter. Hey, let me in!
Excuse me.
Kathy Jo came to Roy's house, and I believe 6 weeks had gone by before they actually seen him, so they were just taking a chance that he would be there. I know during that visit, things got really bad between Rosemary and Kathy Jo.
The confrontation forces Roy to pick a side.
I'm sorry. I don't want anyone yelling in my house.
Kathy Jo had a couple of dealings with Rosemary at Roy's house. They argued, they didn't really get along. It was a very strained relationship between Kathy Jo and Rosemary.
She didn't know what was happening. She had the police go over there. They would talk to him and check him out to see if he had any bruises or anything on him and ask him, "Are you okay? Your daughter's very concerned." And he said, "Yeah, I'm fine." So.
Well, you tell her I'm doing just fine and to leave me alone.
If you have someone who is of sound mind and he's a parent, there's nothing you can do. He is of sound mind. He can do whatever he wants to do. He can do whatever he wants to do with his life, with his money, with whatever. She called everyone she could possibly get a hold of. The police to make sure he was okay, protective services to see if they could do anything. And there's nothing they could do.
The family, they kind of read through the lines and saw that there was some things going on. There was some red flags that were going on with Roy. Here, this loving grandfather that would always want to be around his granddaughter and daughter and family, all of a sudden he's with Rosemary, and now he's avoiding them. He's telling people that, you know, he's good, that he doesn't want to be around them.
Roy's repeated confrontations with Kathy Jo leave him suspicious to the point of paranoia.
There was one claim in particular where he claimed that his daughter had tried to break into the house to get some of their property.
However paranoid Roy's claims may seem, they remain somewhat rooted in reality. One afternoon, Kathy Jo finally does take matters into her own hands.
She had a key, so no, she didn't break in. She showed up at the house to check out the mail and gone into the house and looked around.
Kathy Jo was thinking that Rosemary was trying to control Roy and was trying to separate Roy from his family because she was worried about his safety.
Kathy Jo's visit only inflames the conflict with her father. For Roy, this is no act of love. It's a nuisance and an intrusion into his privacy.
It's Kathy Jo.
Yeah, I know.
Roy contacted his attorney and let him know that everything was okay with him and that he wanted to be with Rosemary.
I don't know what to do. I just don't know.
You know, if we just left, it's not like they could follow us.
He had mentioned that if they didn't back off, that he would end up filing a restraining order against Kathy Jo.
Haven't you always wanted to go out west?
California.
I was thinking of someplace a little more exciting.
That's what brought them out to Las Vegas.
Roy and Rosemary pack up their things and finally head west, leaving Roy's family behind without so much as a goodbye.
They tried to contact Roy, and they called him several times.
She called the cops thinking that they were just gonna make me leave. You're gonna sit there and ask me if I'm traumatized?
Leaving Michigan for Nevada, Roy Schutzler and Rosemary Vandecar are ready to settle into their new home. But on the other side of the country, Rosemary's now adult son, Daniel, is in big trouble.
I was dating a chick that me and her got into a drunken argument.
Where were you? Huh? Where were you?
I swear to God, Dan, if you take one more step, I'm gonna call the police.
Who do you think you are?
Get out! Just get out! Get out.
I'm sorry.
There was nothing going on physically. She called the cops thinking that they were just gonna make me leave. Come to find out, well, now I kinda gotta go to jail, and I did.
Held by police, even though his girlfriend won't press charges, Dan knows he's in a tight spot.
Dan was injured quite badly in the war, and ever since he had gotten back, he was dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD.
A veteran of 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, Dan has paid a stiff price for his service.
Dan was in the Marine Corps for, I believe, about 6 years. Ultimately, he had some injuries that he suffered due to some roadside bombs. He had some type of pressure injury to his head, as well as some PTSD.
Just like any soldier, he experienced loss of troops and very close mates and awful war, having to do things that any person should not have to do.
3 deployments, 2 to Iraq and 1 to Afghanistan, and you're gonna sit there and ask me if I'm traumatized? You know, yes, I am part of 1.4 million troops that actually served over there. However, when I came back, I did suffer from 2 DUIs, which I don't blame anybody else but myself. And I suffered from 3 failed relationships, to which I don't blame anybody but myself.
As Dan awaits a decision, he turns to the one person he hopes might be able to help him. His mother.
Danny.
Hey, Mom.
Oh, so good to see you.
Hey.
Oh.
Good to see you, Mom. Good to see you.
Though both Dan and his girlfriend tell police he never laid a hand on her, Dan is staring down an assault charge.
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, did you eat?
Until the DA makes him an offer.
The DA was deciding to drop all charges should I provide an address more than 500 miles out. And I was like, yeah, I can do that.
I wondered if, I was thinking.
You should come stay with us. We have plenty of room, right, Roy?
Yeah, the more the merrier.
Yeah?
So, yeah, I jumped on board with my mom. Also, I just retired out of the Marine Corps, so it was like I needed a place to, decompress and calm down from. That's what ultimately brought me to Las Vegas.
Roy and Rosemary welcomed Dan to their new apartment.
Welcome to Vegas.
Vegas. Yeah.
Not bad, right?
It's nice, Mom. It's nice.
You want some tea? Roy, why don't you make us some tea?
All right. That's okay, Mom. I think I just want to take a shower.
It's right over there. Don't worry about the tea, Roy. He doesn't want it anymore.
Okay.
They say every man has his demons or skeletons in the closet. Some have both.
Daniel told us that he got the tattoo over in Iraq, I believe.
Like a scribbling type tattoo. And when I looked at it and saw what it was, I knew exactly what it was, but it was Redrum, which is murder spelled backwards.
Yeah, man. How you been?
Roy Schutzler and Rosemary Vandecar save Rosemary's son Daniel from jail time by giving him a place to live and a family of sorts. But Roy's family is worried that something is wrong. No one's heard from him since he left for Vegas, despite many efforts to reach out.
They tried to contact Roy, and they called him several times.
Who is it?
It's Joanne.
Who?
My sister, Joanne.
Well, don't answer it then.
But don't you think that
You know they're just trying to control you. They think you're an idiot. Leave it alone.
I called Roy and left a message on the message recorder. And it was an upbeat, "Hi, Roy, I missed you. It's your sister, Joanne. Give me a call back." Gave the phone number and never called back.
He had no dealings with his family once he moved to Vegas. Pretty much cut them out of everything.
Though separated from his family, Roy isn't entirely isolated. He and Dan fall into an easy friendship.
And I ended up getting him into his first bar of his life. Never been to a bar in his whole entire life. And be like, "Oh my God, Roy," having fun.
Do you really think you should be drinking? I mean, it may not be the best thing for you right now.
Well, sure as hell not the worst.
But I mean, he was helping me out with a lot of stuff.
Can't even imagine.
Because at the time, I was only like 24, 25. I was like, what do I need to do, So he was giving me advice.
We need to get you back on your feet, Look into some retraining programs.
Yeah. But there's just nothing out there. We fight in the war, and we come back home broken. And all I get are a bunch of salutes at the mall and nervous looks. Okay. If not booze, how about this?
What is it?
And then getting him to scratch off his first scratch lotto, the scratch off tickets. Yeah, just having fun with them.
As Roy helps Dan to adjust to civilian life, Dan notices a tension between Roy and his mom, Rosemary.
You think I'm some kind of joke? You think it's funny to laugh at me?
Mom, we weren't.
I won't be treated this way, not by you or by anybody else. I do everything for you! Everything!
Well, he kind of always shut up around her.
Mom, look at me.
I think that he was actually more or less scared to talk around her.
For all their problems, one happy constant remains: Rosemary's love of glittering casinos.
They were always out gambling.
Let's do it, let's do it, let's do it! Come on!
Roy had a pretty good pension coming in from the school district back in Michigan. He got a good-sized check every month, and he had a good-sized savings.
During the month of January, Rosemary and Roy had withdrew tens of thousands of dollars out of Roy's account, and most of them were done at casinos in the Las Vegas and North Las Vegas area.
I feel lucky.
I hope you're right about this.
With her, it's like an addiction. It's like something fierce.
One winter's night, just weeks after Dan's arrival, Rosemary proposes yet another trip to the casino.
It's 8 o'clock and I'm feeling lucky.
It's the last thing Dan feels like doing.
Daniel had some type of surgery to his mouth, and he was on medication.
I had 4 wisdom teeth and then 1 natural tooth pulled. So now I'm in a hurt locker, and I do not like pain meds at all.
Now! Oh, come on, you old fart!
On the way to the casino, Dan notices that Roy isn't doing too well.
Hey, Roy. Roy, you okay? You all right, man?
He's fine.
He's wheezing.
He's fine.
If you say so.
At the casino, they hit the slots. By midnight, Dan's ready to throw in the towel.
Basically, the alcohol and the meds are mixing, which is totally irresponsible for me, but I'm not driving, I'm not doing anything.
Enough.
I'm gonna play.
That's when Rosemary and Roy decided to take Daniel home.
On the ride home, Dan's concern about Roy grows.
Roy was sitting there hacking up a storm, like he was coughing and hacking. And I was sitting here on a mixture of, Jack and Cokes and freaking what have you. And I looked at her, I was like...
You don't think that maybe we should, call someone or maybe have him see a doctor? Seriously?
He can die in a ditch for all I care.
I shit you not. That's exactly what she said. I shit you not.
It seems Rosemary and Roy's night has just begun.
Once they took him home, they had continued with their night of partying and gambling and went out to another casino.
Dan crashes out on the couch until dawn, when he's awakened by the sound of his mother shouting from the bathroom.
Danny, call 911! Danny, call 911!
Well, when I first woke up, I looked over and it said 6 o'clock. It said 6:02. I thought it was evening.
Danny, goddammit, get up!
And I was like, what the hell was that noise?
She was screaming for Daniel to call 911.
Don't just stand there, call 911! Right now!
So Daniel called 911 and got police and ambulance to respond to the apartment.
At the hospital, Dan is alarmed by Rosemary's response to Roy's passing.
They're gonna try to pin this on me.
Mom, that's crazy, okay? He did nothing wrong.
They're gonna blame me.
I thought it was a damn heart attack or, some kind of medical emergency that I don't know about.
Rosemary's odd behavior persists.
Seriously, Mom, look. I'm upset too, but you have to calm down.
Look, if you were not scared right now, then you are just stupid.
I looked at her, I was like, why are you so panicky about this? I mean, if he just died of natural causes, why are you so freaking out?
Spurred by the results of the autopsy, homicide detectives Michael Bodnar and Tony Litieri are assigned the case. The list of suspects isn't long.
You have a woman in her mid-50s who's quite frail and probably weighs 100 pounds, and then you have a 6'4" Army vet with severe PTSD with the word murder tattooed across his chest. It's it's pretty easy to draw conclusions as to who you might think would be guilty in a crime like this.
I saw a lot of money going out in cash.
Just a panicked state.
North Las Vegas police detectives have brought Rosemary Vandecar and her son Dan in for questioning regarding the death of Roy Schutzler. The police believe it was a brutal act of murder.
The conclusion of the autopsy was that it was a homicide and a manner of death was strangulation. I interviewed Daniel first. There were still a lot of unanswered questions for me about Daniel's involvement. You could tell something was going on there with Daniel.
As the interview continues over several hours, Dan's story remains the same.
I don't know what you want me to tell you. I can't even say it in a different way. What do you want from me?
Only want to know the truth, Dad.
I didn't do anything to Roy. Could have died in the bathroom for all I know.
Most people, when they come down to the police department and given stories, they'll be intimidated just because they're in a police department. But Daniel was a matter of fact about, I didn't have anything to do with it, and I don't know how Roy ultimately died, but I didn't do it.
I was drinking and taking pen medication for my teeth, and it was hell. Trust me.
He never deviated from that story.
I woke up, I can't even tell you if it was the morning or the middle of the afternoon.
He said he was sleeping on the couch, awoke to his mother's screams, saw her performing CPR on Roy, and called 911.
Just stand there, call 911 right now!
We spent 7.5 hours, I think, give or take, getting interrogated.
And I was not involved in Roy's death. It wasn't me.
Yeah, well then who killed him?
Frustrated, the detectives leave Dan to sit and stew while they turn their attention to his mother.
We told Rosemary that we knew that it was a homicide and that we knew that Roy had died of strangulation and somebody had strangled him.
What, you think he was murdered? That's nonsense.
She at first denied any knowledge of this being a strangulation at all and appeared very, very shocked and surprised and denied any of our questioning.
The guy died of natural causes.
Roy was a very frail person, almost 70 years old.
I heard a crash, came running in.
The first story was that he had fallen and hurt himself and maybe fallen on his neck or fallen, and then it progressed.
Why is it so hard for you to believe that?
She kept asking if Roy could have done this to himself somehow.
He couldn't have done that to himself. He's too bruised up.
We had told her there's absolutely no way that someone can do this to themselves. There's way too much damage for that.
It's then that Rosemary's story changes.
I'll give you the truth.
She says that she was a victim in the relationship.
Roy was far from being an angel, okay? Especially with me.
She had told us that they had got into an argument at the casino. They came back. He was abusive.
I went to the bathroom to brush my teeth. I wanted to close the door, but he wouldn't let me. Just give me a moment. I'll be right out.
You idiot.
He just kept yelling at me like he always did.
You loser! I could have won thousands tonight if it wasn't for you.
She was tired of the abuse. She wasn't going to let it go on anymore.
I had enough. I had enough.
Did I kill him? Did I kill him?
She finally said, "What don't you understand? I had my hands around his neck and I was choking him."
I hate you! I hate you! I choked as hard as I could. I don't know for how long. I think I blacked out.
Litieri goes back to Dan for corroboration of Rosemary's story. He's got plenty to say.
Roy was, let's say, a gentleman to my mom. But you know, my mom isn't quite who you think she is.
My mom was a drama queen from hell, and any claim that she ever made was about a 98% chance a lie.
He painted a different picture, that she was abusive towards Roy and that she did not treat him well at times.
3 days before his death, I saw her.
What about your intention?
According to Dan, Rosemary had a history of abusive behavior toward Roy.
Oh dear! I do everything. I cook. I clean.
My mother was pile driving her finger into Roy Schutzler's chest.
You moron! What do I get?
And I witnessed this.
Moron!
Mom, stop! You're hurting him.
You stay out of this.
Roy would never hurt a fly. I cannot believe that she would say something like that. I mean, she has to be delusional. No, I'm sorry. Roy wouldn't hurt a flea.
And there's something else.
Dan then describes Rosemary's behavior at the hospital.
We need to go to the bank.
What?
Right now, let's go before the family gets involved.
It turns out Roy's family back in Michigan had been right to be concerned.
It seemed like she systematically separated him from his family members. Then she was able to get Roy to sign power of attorneys and make her the executor of his will, and also completed a new will naming her in it.
Dan even reveals that Rosemary had a plan in case she was arrested.
She told me if she got caught, to skip town.
She said, "Hey, if I go down, I want you to freaking leave."
Wait, what? Leave where?
Are you freaking serious? You are psychotic. I even told her that. It's the only time in my life I ever told my mom she's psychotic.
Armed with this damning new information, the detectives are ready to make an arrest.
When we arrested her, she had a cashier's check still in her purse for $10,000 that we recovered, $5,200 cash in her purse.
With a solid case shaping up against Rosemary, Dan is released and his mother is charged.
After Rosemary's, quote-unquote confession, the spotlight fell off of Daniel, and he was quickly released, and, there was no further investigation into him, and he kind of wasn't seen again until her trial when he was there to testify against her.
Rosemary was charged with murder, victim over 60, and she was convicted of second-degree murder.
I don't think that she deliberately premeditated. I don't think that she ever thought that this would end up in murder. But we knew one day that her actions were gonna be irreparable. And we were just afraid.
There are those who still can't believe Rosemary is a killer and wonder if she was protecting her son, Dan.
I initially met Rosemary when I was in the prison working on a documentary project following the lives of inmates. And we initially found her because she had the nickname of Jail Mom. She was, in her cell block, she was kind of the sweet old lady who had experience and had knowledge of the legal system and used that to help most of the other women with their cases. If she is this, master manipulator, she's a really good actor because she definitely does not portray that. She definitely does not come across as that. She's She plays the role, if it is, acting, she plays the role of the sweet old lady very, very well.
If anyone thinks that she stepped up and took the fall for him, don't believe it. I've considered it myself. I've considered if this were my situation, what would I do? I'd probably take the blame and, But I don't believe that that's the case here. Because like I said, I've been on the other side of one of her chokeholds before. And I know my brother.
And although a sentence of 18 to life is no trade for a life taken, police are glad someone paid a price.
Rosemary took advantage of Roy because he was grieving for his wife. He wanted another relationship, and I'm sure she worked that angle. And it shows that we have to really watch out for our older population because they are very vulnerable.
I would just admonish anyone who is in a situation where they've lost a spouse just to be very cautious to letting in any new people in their lives. And that's when the exploiters do come in, because they can sense it. You can sense when someone is really needy, that they want a friend.
My biggest regret on earth is not calling Adult Protective Services. And if his family is watching this, I apologize. There is no bigger apology on earth that I can give than right now. I'm sorry. I wish I could have done something different.
I think he was very lonely. I think he just wanted someone who he could love, someone who could be a friend, someone who would be there for him, which is just really, really sad.